Welcome, everybody, to an all-new episode of the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. I am Brian Ciano. Thank you so much for joining us. As we take our weekly look at everything going on in the world of combat sports, we got a lot to talk about. We got a BKFC card last week. We got a recap. We got one coming up this week. We got a preview. We have an interview where we'll talk to BKFC flyweight Andrew Legend Strode is going to be fighting for that vacant flyweight title. Ask him how that came to be and how he's feeling as he gets ready for that fight coming up later this summer. We will also later on talk to lights out middleweight Renato Valente as we get ready for that card this weekend, which he is going to be headlining for Lights Out Extreme Fighting 25. And we'll also talk a little bit about different news going on in the world of the BKFC and the PFL. All that coming up on today's show. But as we said first, let's get right into recapping what we just saw this past weekend as the BKFC got back into action this summer. Had a few weeks off there. It was a busy start to the year. Now it's going to be an even busier summer for the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships, and they got it kicked off here with a fight card out in Albuquerque, BKFC 75, last Friday, June 6th, where a title was on the line, and that was Dave Redneck Mundell putting his strap up for grabs against Donald Sanchez, that middleweight title. But it came with the champ, and it leaves with the champ, because Sanchez, a 40-year-old from Albuquerque, is a longtime MMA fighter, was coming in on a 4-fight win streak. That is now stopped as Mundell gets the victory. The 33-year-old from Tampa came in the champ, leaves the champ. The Florida MMA fighter has now won 8 in a row, continues to just be dominant in this division, continues to be the pound-for-pound #1 best in the BKFC. Even though Sanchez was taller, Mundell was longer, and he was more aggressive, and he defended his title with unanimous decision victory. 49-43 on 2 cards, 50-42 on 1 card. That's right, that was a big gap there, a big discrepancy in the scoring. 7 points, 8 points. That's not your typical 5-round unanimous decision win. That's because you got a couple knockdowns here. Round 1, both guys are starting a little slow, looking to pick their spots, looking to find their areas, and then eventually Mundell, about a minute in, starts to take over, starts to come forward, starts to be the guy being more aggressive and putting Sanchez on his back heels, and gets not 1 but 2 knockdowns in the round. One just before the round ended. Looked like Sanchez was going to escape with a 10-8, losing round there. Ends up with a 10-7 as he gets dropped for a second time just before that bell goes off. Round 2, round 3, very similar to both these ones. 4, 5, they all kind of ended up the same in many regards, with Mundell continuing to come forward. The 5th one was a little bit different. You got a little bit more out of Sanchez, even though he was on the back foot still. A little more aggressive with his punches because he knew that he was in desperation mode there. But again, in round 3, Mundell drops Sanchez once again, gets another knockdown to add to his score. So you got 10-7 the first round, probably 10-9 the second round, 10-8 the third round, probably 10-9 the fourth round, and then the 5th round, that one is probably the one that was more up for grabs. I kind of gave that one to Sanchez on my scorecard a little bit, given that he landed a little more than before. That Mundell was coming forward still, but still being smart and not leaving himself wide open to the power of Sanchez to get dropped and end up losing a fight that he was clearly in the lead in. So 49-43 is how I had it. That's the way 2 judges have it. One has it 50-42. But the champ is still the champ, and the Redneck holds on to his title. And he had a lot to say on the way out, not just about his opponent, but about the one he wants to fight next.
Perhaps Sanchez, when I knocked him down 3 times, I think. And, he kept getting up. He's a tough dude. I kept saying it that I was in for a full fight. It kind of sucks. He's ruined my streak. But, I just I did what I had to do. And you guys seen, I pushed, last 10 seconds there, I heard it clap, and I went for the finish real quick. I'm my own worst critic. I'm never really happy with my performances. But you know what? Put Mike in front of me and watch what happens. I'll put his ass smooth out. Promise you that.
The Redneck is now 10-1 in his BKFC career, while Sanchez now falls to 4-2. And you heard him talk about Mike there. The Mike he is referencing, of course, is the one he's been referencing for about 2 years now, and that is Mike Perry. And it doesn't seem to matter how many times he calls him out. Doesn't seem to matter how many times they see each other at fights and talk that smack back and forth. Does not seem like that fight is meant to be. Hopefully it finally does. We've been calling for that for 2 years. Hopefully we can still make that happen. He even said in the ring afterwards in his post-fight that if you're going to keep giving me bums, at least give me a famous one. And that one would be Mike Perry that he is talking about, hoping to get that fight and that big money deal once again. We'll see if that is what comes to fruition. Also, another fight that you had, the co-main, the cruiserweight fight between Murat Kilometov versus Leo Bercier. Kilometov, the 33-year-old Russian, now training in New Mexico. Bercier, the 44-year-old from Montana, former MMA fighter with over 40 fights on his record. Kilometov was going to have a height and reach advantage, and he used that to his best ability as he gets the first round TKO victory. Both guys coming in kind of hands down style early on, but Kilometov, very fast on his feet for a bigger guy, a lot quicker there. Caught Bercier with a straight left that seemed to hurt his eye late in the fight, as you see there. Doesn't go down. Kilometov kind of backs off, but then the ref says, keep going. He didn't go down. So that was after he had already knocked him down with 1 minute left with a little left uppercut. So catches him there. You can see the problems with the right eye for Bercier. He did not like what was going on and decided to kind of cover up there. And the ref said, if you're not going to fight, I'm not going to let it go. Calls the fight there. Kilometov with another victory. Now 3-0 in the BKFC. Bercier falls to 5-3, 6-4 bare knuckle overall. And, we are always going to have guys talk about who they want to fight next in these interviews after the fight. Well, the Russian was no different. And even though, he needed a translator for his first answer, when he's talking about who he wants next, that needed no translator at all.
Hey, of course, I want to fight. I need a belt and Chris. Come on, let's go. Send contract, clean my belt, and get your ace to cage. I'm ready.
That was Kilometov right there, calling for the champ, wanting a shot at Chris Camozzi. We'll see. 3-0 is a good record. I don't know if that's one to jump over some of the guys that are sitting up in that division behind the champion at cruiserweight. But, of course, some of those guys, have suffered their own losses. When you look at guys like Sawyer DP, who lost to him, Tomahawk Townsend's trying to rebound here. Kilometov at number 5 could be a guy to jump in that mix now, as long as we have a prolonged absence from the Juggernaut, who, of course, was supposed to fight to try to get his title back against Camozzi, but then ended up injured and did not fight in Italy like we expected. Also on that card, you had a bantamweight bout between Derek Perez and Rick Caruso. Perez, 33-year-old, Caruso, the 37-year-old. Both guys, they're either feast or famine, finish or get finished in their fight careers in the BKFC. And this one, it was going to be hard to pick for us because both these guys, as we said, kind of mediocre records, kind of wild with their fight. Well, this one went all for Perez. The TKO at the end of round 3. He was coming forward early, working on Caruso. A lot of times working out of that half tie clinch there, trying to do his best to make his opponent pay every time he got close and just constantly pushing forward. Caruso was trying to do his best, but never could really get off his shots, never really had the distance. And when he was swinging, it was wild, and Perez was able to get out of the way. I thought Perez had 10-9, 10-9 the first 2 rounds. And then you get to the 3rd round, and he continues to pummel his opponent until eventually he drops just before the end of the round and decides he does not want any more of that punishment. He will not continue, and Perez gets the victory to now go to 4-4 in the BKFC. Caruso now 2-5 in his BKFC career. You also had a great battle between Felipe Chavez that got changed. A lot of these fights, unfortunately, got changed due to fighters dropping out last minute. We were talking about a big battle between Van Wyk and, of course, Jenny Savage. That one didn't come to fruition. We're talking about Felipe Chavez was supposed to fight James Dennis. That one also did not happen. Chavez instead fights Hansvik and gets the victory, so a good job by him there. But just, a lot of issues, unfortunately, for the BKFC and Dave Feldman. Keeping this card together, but still some great fights as well for you to watch, as they always are out in Albuquerque. And always, a great set of fans out there, a lot of fight camps, a lot of informed fight fans out there watching. You also had some great battles. The Perez fight was the 3rd round TKO. Like we said, Chavez got the unanimous decision win over Hansvik. You had William Albrecht get a TKO in the 2nd round over Kyle McElroy. You also had Skylar Mahler beat Bryant McLean by TKO in the 1st round. Only 43 seconds in that one gets him part of the knockout of the night. So a great job by him. And Bobby Henry, relative of Bryce Yaya Henry, gets the win over Casey Yates by KO in round 5, a minute and 31 into that one. So a bunch of great fights out there in Albuquerque, a great card. When we come back, we're going to look ahead to a great fight coming up later this summer with Andrew Legend Strode here on the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid.
Have awoken. Maybe they are the best team out in the West, because a rooting interest for me, Tom, always the Mariners. Hey, they're finally getting the hitting back, but now that's starting to slide.
We can make a case for the Rangers. They shore up some things. A team that the Rangers, you and I were both very high on coming into the season. They make a shot for the wild card. But I do think it's going to be a 2-team race between the Astros and the Mariners, and that's really about it.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Does a guy like Giannis fit onto that roster if you can make some of those changes?
I just don't see a KD pursuit as being realistic for the Knicks. But hey, if they can pull a rabbit out of a hat, as Leon Rose oftentimes can, I'd go after Giannis in a heartbeat. It's just, what type of package could they entice for the Milwaukee Bucks? And is it a 3 or 4 team trade? It gets a little bit tricky in that regard.
You see the Knicks there with a plus 340 price.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches, and it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't, but yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say I buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. And as we've been talking about for weeks, we have a loaded summer coming up for the BKFC. And one of those cards that is going to be doing huge things for the sport, of course, is going to be on July 12th down in Hollywood, Florida. Loaded card, BKFC 78. And one of the guys on that card is going to be Andrew Strode, the legend, who continues to fight now at flyweight for the BKFC and going to be fighting for the interim title now. We'll talk about that fight coming up in just a few minutes, Andrew. But first, I want to talk to you about, how you got here to this point in your career. You were a guy who went through the rigors of boxing and training with glove boxing. You had a long amateur career. Then you had, a good professional record as well. Now, doing great things in 10 months in the BKFC. What was the thing that made you want to make the change, and how do you feel like you're progressing in your fighting as you go on? Because, looking at your record, you had a kind of almost okay record in amateur, got better as you became a pro. Now going to BKFC, you're undefeated. So, what made you want to take the gloves off? And how do you feel like you have kept improving over the years of your career?
What made me take the gloves off and switch to bare knuckle from boxing was, honestly, was me wanted the more and wanted the more blood and more violence in it. I love boxing, but I just felt like bare knuckle was made for me. And as I had my first debut back in 2023, it was good, but I fell in love with it right after, and I knew this was made perfect for me.
Yeah, you've done, a lot of things. Late 2023, you had that fight against Caprio to get you involved. And then you had 3 fights here so far for the BKFC. Then you had Wilson right after that. Got even better, another TKO. Then the win over Randall in your last fight back in February. What do you feel like has been the biggest thing that you have improved upon, or that has been different for you as you've gone through these 3 fights in the BKFC and become more and more acclimated to the way this sport works?
Me just being me, I really got acclimated to the sport as I knew that I had to. This wasn't boxing. This is a real fight, and I knew I had to learn a couple more things like the clinch game, because I know a lot of people know the clinch game because you can hold the back of the head and punch and stuff. I definitely had to learn a lot of stuff through my 3 fights in this BKFC, and I feel like I've been doing amazing. I know I was meant for this, and I want to be the greatest BKFC fighter there is.
And you're working your way towards that right now, training hard as you get ready for this fight down in Hollywood, Florida. How did this fight come together for you? Now you're in the rankings in that top 5 here, sitting at number 3 at the flyweights. Obviously, you want your chance at the title, but that belt is held by Dodson, And, he had the draw against Aguero. He had that other fight for the BKFC over in Risen, last year. He fought again now in Risen for a second time. What happened that now this is going to be an interim fight for you guys? Is there anything that that we haven't heard about? Is Dotson done with the BKFC? Is this title stripped? And how did this come together for you that they said, hey, do you want to fight for this belt against Perez?
I just got a call from my manager, and then he told me that I had to fight the cut man, and I was, I'm ready for anything, Cut man, I have much respect for him. He's one of the greats of a flyweight too, but the belt's coming home in Denver, This is meant for me. This is my fight, and wherever Dotson's running, he needs to run my way and we need to get the fight after this fight. And I'm not overlooking Perez or the cut man. He's a great fighter, but I just feel like this belt is mine, and I'm going to go in Florida and show Florida what Denver's about, the 303, baby.
Yeah, he is coming in here on a 3-fight win streak as well. You talk about the respect you have for him. What are you looking for? What are you expecting from him when you get into it and mix it up with him down in Miami?
Honestly, I don't look to what he's doing. I'm going to do me, and I'm going to win the fight and bring the belt home to Denver. This belt's mine. I've been training really hard, and I know Cutman been boxing his whole life also, but I'm really legit, and I'm gonna show everybody July 12th what the Strode show is about, and it's gonna be one of the greatest fights of BKFC, because I know he's gonna bring it, and I'm really gonna bring it.
You certainly are. You talked a couple times about bringing it home to Denver. That's where you're repping, of course. That's where you are out there in the Mile High City, as we see there on the jersey. How much do you think that gives you an advantage? I mean, obviously, we know there's plenty of fight camps in New Mexico, out in Albuquerque, where the BKFC just was. There's plenty of fight camps down the Florida area. But that elevation and some of the fight teams that have really started to put things on the map for MMA, for bare knuckle boxing, for boxing out there in Denver. How much do you think you hold an advantage training at that elevation and being out there amongst that fight community that's there?
I think training at a high altitude gives me a little advantage, but, this is bare knuckle. Any punch at any time could stop a fight either or way. So I just got to bring it, and bring my A game, and I'm going to July 12th. As I said, I'm going to be one of the greats, and this is just the start for me, after this, and after this fight, not overlooking, I'm hopefully I defy Dotson and really prove that I'm one of the best and one of the greatest.
And there's a ton of great fights on that card. How excited, do you just focus on your fight? It's all about what you're doing, especially since you're fighting for the title here. Or do you look at the rest of the card and be like, man, this is going to be a big night, overall, when you got, Perdomo, Adams, as the headliner right in front of you guys. You got Duran, Peralta, Ibarrola fighting on that card as well. H.T. Davis back on the card. Do you ever look around you as far as who else is fighting that night to see, how exciting it's going to be for everybody? Or is it just, blinders on your fight, that's all that matters?
No, this is a stack card, and much respect to everybody. There's amazing fighters. We got Perdomo, we got Gallo, we got HD, we got a lot of people fighting on this card. And this is the card. For me, when I win the belt, it's gonna be for me to show the world who I am, and really not compete, but just give it a high, because it's gonna be high elevate, high intensity fight. So I want to show Florida and everybody, and I want to be up there with them, doing what they do,
Andrew, Legend Strode going in there to fight for that flyweight title against G. Perez, July 12th down there in Hollywood, Florida for the BKFC 78. Make sure you check it out. Andrew, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Good luck in prepping the rest of the way. We look forward to this great fight you guys are going to put on in a couple weeks.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Shout out to you, Brian, and shout out to everybody. July 12th, everybody tune in, man. It's going to be an amazing card, July 12th, and at the Hard Rock in Miami. You don't want to miss it, man.
13 total, 19.5 wins. I told you to go under, and it's by far the best bet I have recommended on this network in 4 years. They can't get out of their own way. And now Sloot is out for the year. Let's hope Sloot gets back, because I respect the hell out of Sloot, and I want her to go out on her own terms hopefully we'll have her back for the 26th season.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I got a feeling
Finally.
Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. I got a feeling there is no chance they're going to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I'm just kidding.
They're still not expected to have over 8.5 wins. They're still not expected to have a winning record. Now, I know things could change for the next 24 hours. I get that. But everyone expected Aaron Rodgers to sign with him. He's going to sign with him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on Sports. We're great to get to know Andrew Legend Stroud as he prepares to take his shot at the belt. And now we look forward to a fight we have coming up just this week. Coming up on the 14th, Mohegan Sun BKFC Fight Night, Porter versus Kleckler. Going to start at 6 o'clock Eastern, the main card. So get the kids to bed early because you want to sit down and be able to watch this at 6 o'clock Eastern. Or, of course, you can always go back on the BKFC app and check it out later. It's also going to be on Fubo TV. Going to be headlined by heavyweights, the big boys swinging up there in Newcastle, and that will be Parker Porter versus Dylan Kleckler. Porter, the 40-year-old New Englander, former MMA fighter, 6 foot, 73-inch reach, 1-0 in the BKFC, his only fight, a first-round TKO win over Chase Gormley in February at the Mohegan Sun, so very familiar with that arena. Going to be taking on Kleckler, the 43-year-old from Florida, former MMA fighter, 11-1 in his MMA career. He's going to be a little bit taller, a little bit longer, 6'3", 76-inch reach. Won his first 3 BKFC fights in 2020 and 2021 before facing Arnold Adams for the title and lost by a second-round TKO there, but hasn't fought in the BKFC since. That was 3 years ago, making his return here after fighting in glove boxing and some bare-knuckle MMA. You have the new fighter, but not new as far as age, but they're similar in age. But Porter, the 40-year-old, new to the BKFC still. Kleckler, a little more experienced, but could he be rusty coming back to the sport he hasn't been in? I'm going with Kleckler. Both these guys, either way, no matter who wins, I think someone's getting dropped, as you often have with the heavyweights. But I'm going to go with Kleckler this one by KO. I think he's just fought a little bit better competition so far, and I think I'm a little more, I'm a little more confident in his game from what we've seen early in his BKFC career, even if it's been a couple of years out of the squared circle. Then at heavyweight, again, more big boys swinging, more probably KO finishes here as you get Jorgen De Castro versus Josh Stay Down Watson. De Castro, the Mad Titan, the 38-year-old, originally from Cape Verde, now lives in Massachusetts, the former UFC fighter. 6'2", 73-inch reach. He beat Bobby Brents by second-round TKO at the Mohegan Sun in February. Again, a lot of fights from these guys on this card that have already been there before in this arena, knowing what knowing what they're dealing with. That could be an advantage maybe for those guys. You get a little bit of a smaller arena, different field, smaller ring than you might have had in some of these other fights that they have had before in other arenas. Stay Down Watson, though, well-experienced, a 35-year-old New Englander who now lives out in Vegas, training out there. He's a former NFL player and MMA fighter. Going to be a little short, 6 foot, but a 78-inch reach, and that's going to be a big thing for him to try to keep the Mad Titan at bay. 3-1 the BKFC, lost his first fight, now has won 3 in a row, all by first or second round KO, TKO in his BKFC career. So again, as I said, this ain't going 5. Now, these guys, we'll see who ends up on the winning side of this. I'm leaning towards De Castro. Jadon Watson has showed how tough he is. He showed he's a badass. He showed he can drop guys. But I think even despite that reach, for a lot of guys, that could be the death knell. Just being able to throw out that jab before you land the big power punch behind it that the guy's not expecting. I think we've seen from DeCastro over his career, both in the UFC and now here in the BKFC, that the guy's got a chin, and he's not afraid to walk through some punches to get his hands on you. So I'm going to go with Yorgan DeCastro getting the victory here. Also on the card, you have a middleweight fight between Brennan Ward, Irish Brennan Ward, versus J.R. Rumley. Rumley, the 32-year-old from Virginia, former MMA fighter who had a long amateur career. Most of his wins by submission. Now taking off the gloves, making his BKFC debut. We'll see how that translates. It's one thing to make that transition from boxing, MMA, or some other form of combat sport where your primary way of winning was knocking fools out. But now when you can take a guy to the mat, now when you can choke him out or tap him out any which way, that takes something out of your game. What do all those years of training for that go for? Can you just transition easy? Some guys are able to do it. Some have a little bit more struggles with that. We'll see if Irish Brennan Ward can take advantage of that. The 37-year-old from Connecticut, former MMA fighter in the UFC and Bellator, where he had a 19-7 record for his career. 1-0 in the BKFC. His only fight in the BKFC, a 38-second knockout over James Dennis in February, again, at this Mohegan Sun. A guy from the area, from Connecticut, and going to have a lot of people behind him, a lot of experience, fighting in that area, experience fighting in this ring for the BKFC at this venue. I'm going to go Irish Brennan Ward by TKO in this one to take out the debuting J.R. Rumley. Also at bantamweight, you have Lardy Navarro versus Anthony Foy. Navarro, youngster, 23 years old, 5'10", 70-inch reach, former amateur boxer. Now he's 2-1 in the BKFC. He beat Prater by first-round KO in March of 22, lost to Gonzalez by KO in February of 23, beat Grady by fourth-round KO in this February at the Mohegan Sun. So again, it's fought here in this ring. A little bit of time in between his fights. We'll be taking on Foy, the hitman from North Carolina, who's going to be a little shorter, but a lot longer reach. The former MMA fighter is only 1-3 in the BKFC, though. So I'm going to go with the youngster here, Navarro, by TKO. And also excited to see Rick Hahn back in action here. The 48-year-old former judo Olympian and MMA fighter getting back in there for the BKFC. I think he wins by TKO.
Their team total is 19.5 wins. I told you to go under, and it's by far the best bet I have recommended on this network in 4 years. They can't get out of their own way. And now Sloot is out for the year. Let's hope Sloot gets back, because I respect the hell out of Sloot, and I want her to go out on her own terms. Hopefully we'll have her back for the 26th season.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I got a feeling Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. I got a feeling there is no chance they're going to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I'm just kidding.
They're still not expected to have over 8.5 wins. They're still not expected to have a winning record. Now, I know things could change for the next 24 hours. I get that. But everyone expected Aaron Rodgers to sign with him. He's going to sign with him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Foul him! Ref!
Ready? Ready?
J-Dub! Yes! Oh! It was never in doubt! It was never in doubt! Oh, there's points falling out of my eyeballs! Oh, James Johnson to the 10! Everybody gets home!
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid, and we continue to talk about some great action we have coming up this week. And this one, we're going to switch out to California. We're going to talk about Lights Out Extreme Fighting 25 this weekend on Saturday. Make sure you're checking it out on Lights Out Sports app. Sean Merriman and crew get another card together, as they always do, putting some great fights on. And Renato Valente is going to be part of that, headlining that card against Curtis Melander, who we talked to a couple weeks ago. Renato, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you for coming on as you get ready and locked in for this fight. How are you feeling the last few days as you are in your final prep and your final training sessions before you make that walk out to the cage and headline this card?
100%, man. Thanks for the opportunity. It's my pleasure to be here, and I feel really, really good. Last week, fight week, just put the mind on it. Body's already there a long time ago, and just looking forward to put a show for everyone.
We're looking forward to that show. It should be a great fight. A lot of great fights on this card, as Sean Merriman always does. Should be some great action for us to all check out. I know it had to move to a different location back to where they usually are, but that shouldn't affect you guys. It was long enough ahead of time. I'm sure that's no effect for you. But now you're coming in here, and you've had a long fight career already at 32. You've 17 fights under your belt. You fought for Bellator. You fought for a bunch of different organizations. Now coming in here for Lights Out Extreme Fighting. What drew you to fighting for Lights Out now? What made you want to fight under this banner and for Sean Merriman?
To be honest, I'm a fan of him, and I was, looking a bunch of companies here around Los Angeles or the whole U.S., and he put like a great show, every time. That's going to be 25, right, I think. And, to be honest to you, I had a really, really big problems the last year to find opponents to fight, and then I'm really glad Melendez, took the fight. Super excited to fight him, and that's one of the reasons, first of everything, I think Lights Out was a great show. Merriman is doing a great job. And second, it was just like the opponent situation, being really hard to find someone you want to fight or, just being tough. But there we go.
Well, it should be a great fight. We'll talk about the fight itself in just a minute here, but I want to give a little more background to people who may not have been following you as closely as they should have over the years, who might not have seen some of your fights that you've had. Obviously, you're originally from Brazil. You have the Indio nickname. You have the headdress that you wear out to the cage. I want you to tell a little people about, where obviously now you're out of Huntington Beach. You're living in California. You're training here in the U.S., but tell people about, your past, about Brazil, and about, your ancestry and how you represent that, and how you, are out there showing people, teaching people, and, doing your best to make those who came before you proud.
100%, man. I'm a Brazilian native, born in Amazon, so whole family is a native. All the ancestry is native. And, bring that with me, all the native power we have. The blood and everything, and have some faith on that also. The forest, the jungle, and everything. It was just like, give me the power, give me the strength to keep doing. That's what I show everyone. It's something we need always to take care about it also. And every single opportunity I'm gonna have is always gonna be there as a native person, and I hope Native American. And preparation here in California is also great. I start my career there in Brazil, and, long way, Mexico, now here U.S., I think now I'm in the right place, but also never lost this, ancestry power that I bring with me wherever I go.
And, you've talked before on social media just last month, you're talking about how important it is, the dedication, the hard work that it goes into being that. Not everyone has gone through the struggles that people, especially in the fight community, go through in order to get here. They just see a guy in there, and they just, they don't think about everything it takes before that, all the hours in the gym, all the training, for a lot of fighters who aren't on the upper levels of a UFC or something like that, all, working, a regular job on top of, being a parent, on top of training, that should be a full-time job for, the best fighters as well. So how you talk about that in your post, it's not just about talent, not about strength. It's about everything you put into to get to this point as well. And, what has that journey been like for you so far in your career?
Amazing. I've been thinking a lot about that. This pictures I also post. I was in Italy for the last 2 months. I went there to clean out my mind, see things differently. I was like kind of Like I had so much like people pull it out for fights last year from me. It was like a tough situation, get prepared, and then a week at the fight, someone get hurt, or something happened, and being really, really hard for me. And to be honest, the journey, like since day one, I've been enjoying. It's amazing. We get lost sometimes, and you come back, and then every time I feel I come back, and I come back strong. And I think this Saturday I'm gonna show everyone how how better mentally I am and physically I am. I've been training so hard for this moment, and every mistake and every opportunity took me to this point, to be really honest, and I'm ready for it. Whatever he's going to bring it to me, I'm going to be there prepared to, overcome any bad situation or whatever.
Yeah, between 2023 to now, you had 5 different bouts that were scheduled and then canceled. That's got to be frustrating and tough to be putting yourself and your mentally and physically through prepping for that, and then not get to actually go in there and get the payday and get what you deserved and what you put in. But now you will get this against Curtis Melunder. You guys matching up, headlining this event. How exciting is it to headline this event and also to fight a guy like Melunder? He's a long-time vet. He's been around the block, fought for all different organizations, fought for the UFC, fought for Bellator, PFL. Now he's fighting you in Lights Out. What are you expecting from this guy? There's plenty of tape that you can watch and prep for him. What are you expecting as you get into this headlining fight with him?
Yeah, 100%. I'm super excited to fight this guy. He's been in the game for a long, long time, a lot of experience. He been in like big shows, and for me, it's an honor. He's also inspired me. His age and just make me think, okay, I can go farther. Doesn't matter the age or whatever. That's all here. And excited. He's like a really strong and mentally good opponent. And I think if I do like a great statement, that's what I want, just to go and get the next step. To be honest, I still wanna dream by fighting in a big organization like UFC or whatever comes. But I like I say, like you put in my post, I feel like now more mature. Mentally better, and I think I can do it, man. I think I can, be the best in the world. I train with the best, I train with Alex Pereira, Marvin Vettori. I've been in so many different camps in my career, train with Glover Teixeira. So much people bringing me to train with them, so they see a lot of things on me, and I think I was the one lost and didn't see that, potential. Sometimes we start this, career, we start motivated, and then at some point you lost the motivation. A lot of people see that on you, try to put in your heart again, and then I feel like I'm all fired up, and Curtis is getting that fight. That's just like, the proof of that. Like I had a bunch of young and great fighters to fight me, and they pull out all the fights, and Melendez is a veteran and really, really good opponent, and then he accepted the fight with me. So that just showed the level. It's not anyone's gonna try to fight me because I'm also scared motherfucker. So I think I can go there, put in a show for everyone, make a bigger statement, then just wait for the next step, maybe a Lights Out, title shot or whatever they're gonna bring me next. I'll be ready, and to be honest, I want to be the best in the world. I will be the best in the world.
Renato Valente, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to this fight with you and Curtis coming up this Saturday. Make sure everyone checks out Lights Out Extreme Fighting on Lights Out Sports app, or if you're out there in California, get there and see the action in person. It's going to be a great night of fights, and you guys are headlining it. Those are some legends you talk about training with, and hopefully, now that you are older but wiser, you can use some of that knowledge that they pass on to you, become one yourself, and make this a major part of your life story, this great career that you've been on in MMA. Thank you so much, Renato. We appreciate your time and looking forward to that fight.
That's my pleasure, man. God bless everyone, and then 100% I'll be there with everything. You guys are going to see it.
We are looking forward to it. That's going to be a great fight to headline Lights Out. Extreme Fighting 25, Renato Valente, Curtis Melunder. Lots of other great fights going up and down the card that we're going to talk about coming up in a little bit, but make sure you check that out on the Lights Out Sports app.
Plenty of takeaways from Yankees-Dodgers where LA sent the message on Saturday, and the only way the Yankees could salvage it was somehow beating Yamamoto, and they did.
you're staring a sweep in the face. And after losing the World Series, knowing what the opponent is, you know what the narrative would have been on Sunday Night Monday. Oh, Yankees get swept by the Dodgers.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Does a guy like Giannis fit onto that roster if you can make some of those changes?
I just don't see a KD pursuit as being realistic for the Knicks. But hey, if they can pull a rabbit out of a hat, as Leon Rose oftentimes can, I'd go after Giannis in a heartbeat. It's just, what type of package could they entice for the Milwaukee Bucks? And is it a 3 or 4 team trade? It gets a little bit tricky in that regard.
You see the Knicks there with a plus 340 price.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
No one is going to pick Indiana. No one's going to pick Indiana to make it close, honestly. Like, you could get tremendous odds if you pick OKC in 7.
I think that taking the series over 5.5 games, the last 2 NBA Finals series ended in 5. I think this one goes 6. I think the Thunder will get the job done, but I think the Pacers are just too strong of a team and too talented of a team and too deep of a team to lose in 5 or fewer games.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Ready? Jacob! Yes! Oh! It was never in doubt! It was never in doubt! Oh, there's points falling out of my eyeballs! Oh, James Johnson to the 10! Everybody gets home! The 228.5 matters!
In-game live. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Great to get to know Renato Valente as he fights at Curtis Melinda this weekend for, of course, the Lights Out Extreme Fighting on Lights Out XF 25. Should be a great card. Looking forward to watching some more fights in them. Sean Merriman always puts on a great night of fights. Looking forward to all that, but also looking forward to some of these fights that we're going to be talking about right now. There is a lot of big news coming out over the last couple weeks, and we've been pretty busy talking about things coming up. And, different fights, prepping for the semifinals for the PFL, where we got to talk about some fights that are going to be changing here and fights that we are adding for the BKFC, fighter we're adding for the PFL, lots of things going on. Let's get right into it here in this segment. BKFC Texas, BKFC 76, has a big fight change for June 21st. Now, of course, we talked weeks ago about Andrei Arlovsky, the Pitbull, getting into the BKFC squared circle, taking off the gloves from his longtime MMA career, the 46-year-old making his BKFC debut after a 34-24 MMA career, long time, former champion multiple times. But now he's going to be fighting a different opponent, as now kind of an uptick in his level of competition here, getting Josh Cuddly Bear Copeland, the 42-year-old from Colorado. Of course, it's 2-1 the BKFC between 2022 and 2023. Hasn't fought since beating Aurelius by third-round TKO in September of 2023, but he's a tough dude, a big guy, strong opponent. This is a guy who knows how to fight in the BKFC as well. Took a brutal fight against Ben Rothwell, his only loss, but now he is coming in there against Andrei Arlovsky, another UFC legend. But we'll see if he can have the same success that Copeland's past opponent has had from the UFC. Other guys might not have. This is a guy who knows what he's doing. Hasn't fought in a couple years, so we'll see what the ring rust is as far as BKFC goes for the Cuddly Bear. But this guy is game to fight in this sport and knows what he's doing, as he welcomes in the Pitbull coming in there. The Cuddly Bear versus the Pitbull. Obviously, by nicknames, it's just going one way pretty easily, but that's not necessarily how it will go in the cage. We'll see about all that. Also, some fights that were announced coming up the next month after that. BKFC 79 out there in Australia, in Perth, July 18th. We knew the date. We knew it was coming. We knew where. Now we found out who. Going to be headlined there by a super heavyweight fight between Ben Rothwell and Alex Simon. Simon, an Australian former strongman, 1-2 in boxing, a local guy, getting a shot at the champ. Ben Rothwell, the 43-year-old heavyweight champion of the BKFC out of Wisconsin, of course, 4-0 in the BKFC, coming off that Mick Terrell title win where he just beat him up in 36 seconds in Philadelphia. Now fighting at super heavyweight. It's interesting because, of course, that was a big thing with Terrell and Rothwell beforehand. Terrell saying, there's no way this guy's going to make the 265 limit. Now Rothwell doesn't have to. That's 265 plus super heavyweight. He can fight at whatever weight he walks around at if he wants. Going to be interesting to see what it looks like. Sounded when Dave Feldman was announcing this might have been like a one-off, but according to what Conor McGregor, put on the post of the poster you just saw there, he's saying it's for a super heavyweight title, the interim title, and that Ben Rothwell is going to go for double gold. I know it's something that the BKFC has tried to shy away from since some of these guys have held double belts and kind of held things up in certain divisions, but we'll see if that is the case, and that is a title on the line with Rothwell and Simon making his BKFC debut. You'll also see, as you saw on the poster, with women's flyweight battle between Bec Rawlings and Jade Masan Wong. Rawlings, of course, the 36-year-old Australian former UFC fighter, has been with the BKFC for 7 years off and on, coming off a nice win over Taylor Starling, going against Jade Masan Wong, the 32-year-old Canadian, who is 3-2 in the BKFC, coming off her last fight, which was unfortunately a very lackluster performance against Christine Faria last September, fighting for that title. We thought that she'd be, more aggressive. We've seen some big things from her, some great power, but was very respectful of the champ, maybe to a fault, and then was one of the more boring title fights we've seen in a long time. So we'll see what Masan Wong has done to retwork her game as she gets in there, do some tweaks, get some work in there, and get things going against Bec Rawlings, who is a tough fighter and has had her own battles against the Misfit Faria, back-to-back losses for her. We'll see what these two can do against each other down under here in Perth, Australia. We also had announced an announcement come for a BKFC fight night in Philly. Of course, BKFC located in the Philly area. They love to fight there now. They got the okay from Pennsylvania. And we also heard from Dave Feldman talking to Brian Social last week that saying there's going to be an even bigger card in Philly in November. They're going to do a huge card, probably another pay-per-view. They got a couple dates on hold. They got to see when schedules come out for the NHL and the NBA on which date will work, but they're planning on doing another one in the Wachovia. But for now, they're going to be doing another small fight night there, July 25th, headlined by a welterweight battle with Dustin Pegg and Ryan Peterson. Peterson, the 39-year-old former Muay Thai fighter who's 2-0 in the BKFC, beating Godoy by second-round TKO last November, and Solochuk in December by decision in January. Both of those in California. Now goes across to Philadelphia, goes across the country to fight the disciple Dustin Pegg, the former UFC fighter who was 4-2 in the BKFC. Of course, the first fight he ever had there was a DQ by knocking down an opponent who was on the ground, not making that complete transition to these BKFC rules from MMA. Since then has been on an absolute tear, besides his one fight against Carlos Trinidad Snake, beat up Andrew Angelcourt in Philly in a second-round TKO in March fight night. So now he goes back to that same arena, back to that same city, fighting a new opponent. And you'll also see, as you saw on the poster, Johnny Cannoli, Johnny Garbarino, who's 2-0 in Philly. You'll see Pat Sullivan, former hockey enforcer who lost his debut, and Lex Ludlow. Sounds like a comic book villain with a name like that. All three of those guys going to be finding out who their opponents are soon. We do not know yet. Another announcement that came down the way was Sturgis. BKFC Sturgis 2, August 2nd, of course, right from the heart of that bike rally, that week-long celebration of motorcycles. They had a great card outside there at that outdoor concert and arena venue that they put on last year, which was headlined by Taylor Starling and Britton Hart. Well, Starling's going to be involved again. This one is going to be he's going to involve Cannon there, Shelby Cannon, the 34-year-old from Indiana, Boom Boom, former MMA fighter who won her debut over Kat Paprocki in May by decision. Starling, the 29-year-old from North Carolina, the Killer Bee, 4-4 in BKFC, was 3-0, then lost to Faria and Wong back-to-back, then beat Savage and lost to Hart and Bec Rawlings back-to-back. She fought Hart there at Sturgis last year, so she knows this venue, knows fighting outside in front of these these motorcycle enthusiasts. She'll have 5 inches of height and reach against Canada, so that'll be a big advantage. And that's going to be headlined by Gogo Slavetsky versus Jeremy Lane for the vacant welterweight title. Now, we heard, of course, the champion at that division, No Doubt Trout, saying he wanted to go drop down to lightweight and fight for that title. Apparently, he's given up this title to do so, and those guys are going to fight for that one. Also, a ton of great bands there. Lots of great action there in Sturgis for the BKFC. Can't wait to see what's going on there and see the rest of that card that gets added to it.
Dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll fall off. He'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say, yeah, I buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks, and that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here, and he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, you know Milwaukee is going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches, and it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't, but yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back as we close things out on the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Thanks so much to all of you for tuning in once again as we talk about everything going on in the world of combat sports, the BKFC, PFL, Lights Out Extreme Fighting, all that we cover, as well as boxing, UFC, and other things occasionally when we get some time. But so much going on. Unfortunately, didn't get to touch on some of those and some other stories that we wanted to. We'll get into those next week, hopefully, here on SportsGrid. But great to talk to Andrew Legend Strode. Appreciate his time as he gets ready for his title fight. Great to get to know Renato Valente as well as he gets ready for his headlining fight here for Lights Out Extreme Fighting. And let's talk about that card here. This Saturday, as we mentioned, coming up, Lights Out Extreme Fighting 25. It's going to be live on, of course, the Lights Out Sports app. You could always go check it out later on there as well. It should be some great fights, though, out there in Cali. It's going to be headlined by Curtis Melender and Renato Valente at middleweight. Both these guys making their Lights Out debuts. Valente, 32-year-old Brazilian who's now living in Huntington Beach, 10-7 for his career, lost his last 4 of his last 6 and his last fight, so he needs to win desperately here, coming in there 6'1", 72.5-inch reach against Curtis Melender, 37-year-old Californian who's 21-11 for his career. Of his wins, 7 are by KO, TKO, 14 by decision, so likes to stand and trade, likes to make this a striking battle. The 6'2 fighter, 78-inch, he's going to hold an advantage there. Can have almost a half a foot reach advantage there on his opponent. He's fought in the PFL, fought in the UFC, fought in Bellator. This is going to be his Lights Out debut, so he has fought in all the biggest organizations. Now looking, as we heard from him, closing out his career here with this chapter in Lights Out, looking just go in there, kick some ass, and have some fun. We'll see if he can do that. He has lost 3 in a row, so both these guys needing this win desperately to turn things around recently from their struggles. We'll see if they can do that. If we're looking at who they fought, if we're looking at how what their styles are, their skill sets, I'm leaning a little bit towards Melender by decision in this one. I think they can go all 3 rounds, and I think the veteran who's been around in every major organization is going to have that little extra knowledge that he can use. We heard from Renato about the great fighters he has trained with, the knowledge they have passed on, but I still think Melender has a little bit edge here, despite being a couple years older and later in his career. Then at lightweight, you have Joans Mias versus Jeremy Faturoso. Faturoso, this 37-year-old who was born in New York, now lives out in LA, 2-3 in MMA, making his Lights Out debut, lost 3 in a row between 2021 and last year, hasn't fought in 4 years before that, so not the most active fighter right now at this point in his career. Probably a lot of other things going on at his age. Mias, the 30-year-old from Miami, 3-1 in MMA, 5'10", so he's going to be a little bit taller than his opponent. Lost his lights-out debut by submission, the only loss of his career. So was undefeated coming in, lost his first lights-out fight, now looking to get back into the winning records here. I think I'm going to lean towards the youngster here coming out of Miami. That long layoff for Federoso, then, kind of sporadically fighting here. I don't think that really lends itself to being at the top of your game always, despite training. Sometimes it's just different when you get into that cage, and I'm going to go with Mias by decision to win this one there at lightweight. You also have a catchweight bout between Roman Puga versus Alex Valentino Arteaga. Arteaga, 27-year-old from Ecuador, living out of and training out of Irvine now. The Lemon Killer. Interestingly enough, I think this is the second guy we've talked about in Lights Out with that Lemon Killer moniker. I'm going to have to find out what that's about because it doesn't seem like a typical MMA nickname to me, but yet two of these guys in this organization have had it. But there's got to be something behind it that I am not knowing here. 5-6 in MMA for his career, lost his last 3 and 5 of his last 6. While Puga, the 28-year-old from California, is 5'8", with a 71-inch reach here. He's 2-1 in his MMA career. Fought in Bellator before. He was 4-0-1 in boxing as well. So if you add the boxing in with MMA, he is 5-0-1 in his last 6 fights. There's a lot of submissions in his amateur career in MMA, but KOs in that 4-0-1 boxing record that we talked about. And he got a KO in his last fight. So I think, switching a lot more to the striking here later. Well, not later, only 28 years old, but still at this point of his career as he has developed and grown, I think he's adding more to the striking. So I think he's going to get a TKO victory here against Arteaga. Then at featherweight, the last one on the main card of the pros, you have Adrian Segovia versus Shane Stepancic. Stepancic from Texas is 6 foot even, making his pro debut. He was 2-1 in amateur. Segovia out of LA, 5'9", so going to be giving up some height, maybe some reach to his opponent. 1-0 as a pro MMA fighter, 6-0 as an amateur. Split his wins are between decision and submission. So this is a guy that wants to take you down, smother you, and get you to tap out if he can. If not, he's fine going to points. I think he wins this by decision. I think he gets the victory here at featherweight over Stepancic. This is going to be a great card for Lights Out Extreme Fighting. Looking forward to that. We just had a great card, of course, from the PFL last night. We look forward to recapping those semifinals with you next week, as well as looking forward to next week's semifinal card and more BKFC down the way, more fights to talk about, a big signing that's getting thrown into the mix in that PFL tournament next week as well. So much more to talk to you about when we come back next week here on the Combat Sports Report on SportsGrid.
I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, Milwaukee is going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Here we go at Oakmont. Let's start with the course. What do we know about this course? How long is the rough, and does course history come into effect for you this week?
The U.S. Open has always been billed as the most difficult test of golf there is on the planet. And I tell you what, it's often labeled as the most difficult golf course in the world is Oakmont.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.